Greetings! Welcome to our show, Ghosts Are Near, where we discuss various aspects of the paranormal and paranormal explanation and exploration and what have you. I'm your host, Keith Johnson. I'm also the founder of New England Anomalies Research. With me is my co-host, Sandra Johnson.
That's me.
And my other co-host, Carl Johnson.
Hello, as we celebrate our second anniversary show, I believe.
Yes, and I'm very excited about this. It is our second anniversary show.
Wow.
Already. Time does
Unbelievable.
fly. Can you believe this? This is already, ladies and gentlemen, this is already our second anniversary show.
Have we done 40, 41 shows? It's just, it goes by so quickly.
It does, and we've had a blast, and I'm so
That
glad.
we have.
I'd like to actually start out by reading a fan email, if I may, if you will indulge me.
I love those.
Oh, yes. I can't wait for the next show. You guys have done an amazing job. I think your show should be picked up by the Discovery Channel. It's fun, it's
I
informative,
do too.
and it really is a blast to watch. That's by our friend Jamie, Penguin Keeper.
Hey.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so kind of you.
Perhaps they can merge us with World's Dirtiest Jobs and get equal airtime.
Works for me.
Great.
And, speaking of Penguin Keeper and the Ghost Dosers, there were a few people that I forgot to say hello to last time.
Oh,
we were
say
on,
hello to
and
them now.
I just want to real quick say hello to Karina Kay, Dream Singer, and Hoops Mom.
Great. Fantastic.
And for all the other ones that I forgot, I'm only human.
But since this is our second anniversary show, I'm very excited that we have such a wonderful guest with us. Dan Gordon. He is the author of Haunted Baseball, as you can see, Ghost, Curses, Legends, and Eerie Events. He is also the author of Cape Encounters, Contemporary Cape Cod Ghost Stories, for those of you who may be local and even beyond. Well,
So Dan is
He's a
a guest
busy
of
guy.
caliber, yes. He's no ordinary guest. He's a special guest.
all right. Well, thanks for being with us, Dan. How you doing tonight?
Great. Thank you
Great.
for
A
having
little
me.
hot in the studio, I know, but we'll just chill ourselves with some scary ghost stories.
Sure. Yeah.
Works
right.
for me.
Now, I want to start off by asking you, how did you come about with the ghost genre? I mean, what interested you? Have you been a lifelong haunted tales enthusiast, or?
I've always been interested in ghost stories. Just the how convinced people are that ghosts are real, and that how important it is in people's lives, and really tried to chronicle that and record it, and kind of as a journalist more than a paranormal investigator.
Right. So how about yourself? Did you have an event in your life that kind of triggered it, like so many of us did, or did you just have a lifelong interest in ghost stories and the paranormal?
Unfortunately, never had been privy to a first-hand experience, and so in a way, I'm kind of jealous when I hear these stories. But it's more, But I've been fascinated. When I started doing research for Cape Encounters out on the Cape, the more I did, just the more fascinated I became. But I just love old places and places with history and the stories behind them. And I think learning about the ghost and the ghost stories gives a lot of information about these places.
Well, great. Well, something else you have in common with us and with our studio audience as well, I believe.
Sure.
Yes. So, well, let's touch a little bit on Cape Encounters. That's, of course, local to us. What's going on in the Cape? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Cape has a wide variety of stories. It's had a ton of folklore and stories that go way back to Native American stories and legends and seafaring stories from pirates. They've had a lot of witch lore and stories of witches and a lot of pirate stories as well, and the ghost stories go way back too. And Cape Encounters was an attempt to record stories from folks who have had firsthand experiences, and we basically went into some of the oldest buildings on the Cape, some of the great old sea captains' homes and the owners, and who claimed to have had something going on there. And we had some great stories from a former West Point professor who believes his house is inhabited by a moon cusser, which is a land pirate.
Wow.
And
A moon cusser?
and that he's lived with it for over 70 years.
Never heard that term.
Yeah, that's a Cape Cod term.
I guess so.
Oh, okay.
I guess you have to be.
You have to be
they're
from Cape
here.
Cod.
You have to be
Sure.
kind of a local indigenous
Sure.
to understand that.
And not a complimentary term, is it? Moon cusser.
Well, it just meant that they used to put lanterns on the shoreline to lure in ships, so they were kind of land
Oh,
pirates.
like wreckers,
So-
kind of, they call them, to lure the ship aground.
Right,
and,
yeah. So they like to do it on foggy nights. So if it was a clear night, they would cuss the moon because it would be a giveaway that they were, setting up shop.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Was there not a lot of pirate trafficking in New England, from Maine down to Rhode Island and the Cape?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, quite a bit. And the famous ship Witta, which was shipwrecked off of the coast of Wellfleet on the Cape, and Captain Bellamy, and various pirates that have been part of the lore, and now some of them are rumored to be ghosts or thought to be, some of that's old legend, and I haven't heard of a recent sighting, but yeah, certainly more sea captain sightings on the Cape than anything else. Yeah.
And I see you brought some playing cards. Maybe you could explain these.
Sure, yeah, that was Cape Encounters. It was an attempt to record some of the contemporary stories, but Scary Cape Creatures is a card game we came out with in October, which kind of captured that folklore in a fun way. And
That's a good game to play when there's a thunderstorm and the power's out and you're doing this by candlelight. That sounds like it would be very entertaining,
Scary
doesn't it?
Cape
Yeah.
Creatures.
Scary Cape Creatures. And you got some there?
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Do I hold it?
Yes, hold it up,
Just
please.
some of the Native American characters and some of the, old creatures that Native Americans have talked about. The Wampanoag Indians. Mashop is a famous creature. A lot of streets are actually named after him, who's a giant that guarded over Cape Cod. And some of the famous witches of Cape Cod, especially in the town of Barnstable, are in there. And just
No puckwudgies in there, is there?
yeah, we do have
Oh, you do?
puckwudgies.
You really
yeah, of
do?
course. Yeah, because that was a part of the Cape too, and sand elves, which were another figure that were talked a lot about by Native Americans, and which is part of the legend and lore of the
You
Cape.
hear that, Chris Balzano? They're in the cards. So-
yeah. Christopher actually
Well,
helped us a bit.
Puckwudgies, get
Oh,
around.
fantastic. So you did research with him, huh?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the subject of haunted baseball. I mean, I'm certain there's so much to talk about with sports in general, but
Sure.
this specializes in haunted baseball.
Abner Doubleday's game. It was way back. And, such a history with that. In fact, some people suspect that Ty Cobbs was possessed, or at least demonically oppressed. Or he oppressed
Hadn't heard
others.
that
Maybe it
one.
was that he oppressed others demoniacally. I don't know.
You lie.
I exaggerate.
But anyway,
Yeah, I've noticed that. So which came first, your interest in baseball or your interest in ghosts? Probably baseball, right?
Yeah, definitely baseball, but of course, at a young age, every child becomes interested in ghosts, and but definitely baseball is something. My dad took me to my first game at age 10, and at Fenway, and
yeah, my dad took me at age 12 to Fenway.
Right,
Never
yeah.
forget it. Carl Yastrzemski was there. Seeing him in person was,
yeah,
world's end then, it was great.
My dad never took me. I didn't really much care at the time, though.
Well,
But
Carl-
baseball still is regarded as our national pastime, is it not?
yeah, and that's what really kind of drew me into the topic. I just thought
Yeah.
that baseball has so much history to it, and places like Fenway and Yankee Stadium and Wrigley Field, historic places, and
Right.
there's just so much nostalgia. Even the newer parks are
Right.
made
Because
to.
when I was a kid, you wouldn't think
Yeah.
of them as necessarily being haunted. It's just something
Right.
to have a good time. Haunted was when you went home and talked ghost stories. But now, of course, when you think of haunted baseball, especially locally, what do you think of?
Pause from the Paw Sox.
Well, the
He's pretty haunting. He's disturbing.
Chris.
The curse of the Bambino.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's what
I think
immediately
that's what
comes
Keith
to
was
mind.
trying to get at.
Yes, right, exactly.
That's what we New Englanders grew up with, and that was definitely something that every Red Sox fan wondered about at some point or another. I mean, just a stretch of bad luck, and the typical year-end collapses that went on for so long, and Bucky Dent's home run in '78 and all that. But
so specifically, that was when Babe Ruth topped out, and nobody could. The team didn't win for so long.
Yeah,
and they say it was they could get close, but not really win a pennant.
And supposedly he did curse them when he left.
Yeah,
and he went to New York. So.
Interestingly, one of the things we found in our research is that there are no references in the media to the curse of the Bambino before the 1980s.
Wow.
We interviewed Red Sox players. We interviewed over 800 players in the book, and we interviewed a lot of Red Sox players going way back to the 1940s. And one thing we found was that none of the players knew about the curse up until the 1980s. And
I think it was more like an urban legend kind of sort.
It was something that George Vesky of the New York Times mentioned in the mid-1980s after Bill Buckner let a ball roll through his legs in the World Series and crushed us again. But after that, Dan Shaughnessy wrote a book called The Curse of the Bambino, and then it became part of our vocabulary.
Oh, so it was popularized that late. It wasn't something that was extant from.
Yeah.
Is it apocryphal that Babe Ruth actually spat out a curse at the Sox and he left for the Yankees?
Yeah, there's no record of that, and I think oftentimes with the curse stories, a lot of them are ways of looking back at trying to, kind of frame the past and kind of frame these streaks of bad luck. Although sometimes it could definitely be cursed, or who knows, but it's certainly a lot of these curses are born, many years after the event actually happened, or at least in the minds of a lot of folks. Yeah.
Perhaps the people assemble the information and then they look at a long train of coincidences or like events and they say, "Oh, we've got the stuff for a curse here." Or
right.
A curse. I'm sorry, Sandra.
I was just going to say, is this the event that kind of drew you into kind of dovetailing your interest in baseball and your interest in ghosts? What kind of spurred you on to write this book?
That's a great question. But honestly, though, I really didn't want to write about something, that being a Red Sox fan that I'd suffered through for so long. Certainly once we started exploring the ghost and some of the legends, the curse of the Bambino had to be, covered, and then kind of drew me in too. Right. But yeah, I was more interested just in the fact that, baseball is so steeped in history and nostalgia and reflection on former players, and that Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb are, well-known players all these years later, and I just wondered whether, seeing all the sea captains' homes on the Cape and all these old buildings that had ghost stories, why not baseball too? And so that's kind of what drew me in. And it was just a curiosity more than anything else.
Right. Well, I understand in your book there is mention of sightings, actually. People have witnessed ghostly sightings at Fenway and other places. And
Field of Dreams, that's not based on a true story, is it?
No, it isn't. W.P. Kinsella wrote a book called Shoeless Joe. But we interviewed Joe Creedy of the Chicago White Sox, third baseman, and he believes that there's a seagull in the outfield that is Shoeless Joe, and he swears by.
A seagull?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so players,
it's
part
possible.
of the, yeah.
Right.
So,
however improbable.
So maybe not an N.E.A.R, but he.
Right.
Shoeless Joe is a bad omen, I take it. Nobody wants to see Shoeless Joe.
Right.
Yeah.
How about? Did you interview any of the stadium staff as part of your book, and what types of experiences have they had?
Yeah, we actually interviewed a few hundred workers as well.
Wow.
And we went in there with the purpose of most of the time of interviewing players, but a lot of times you'd be standing around and you talk to the clubhouse guys or the guys on the field, and they'd start telling you a story. And
so, you say you interviewed about 100. What percentage would you say had tales of something unusual, spooky tales?
Of the day shift, very, very few, maybe 1 or 2%. But of the night shift, I'd say maybe 50%.
Wow.
In various ballparks, Fenway and Wrigley Field. Dodger Stadium especially.
Right.
Just lots of...
Well, that's when you will experience things.
Right,
You know, it's
yeah.
like we go in and we investigate a place, and sometimes we go in with equipment. Sometimes we catch phenomena. Sometimes we don't. But I think it's the people that are there, whether it's a haunted theater or a stadium. They're
Sure.
there overnight, week after week, month after month, and sooner or later the odds are that they will experience something much more than we will. You see, so
That's a good point, yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's just it's the only time the ballparks are quiet. Even in the off season, there are still workers there most of the time. The front office folks and people going about their business.
Can you tell our audience about the Billy Goat curse? I imagine that the locals have heard of that. I hadn't heard of it, and I imagine
That's
many
right.
people
It's
watching.
not local, so
Right.
to us, but.
Yeah, that's a really funny curse story that people take very seriously. There was a tavern keeper, and his name was Cianis. His first name his nickname was Billy Goat because he had a goatee, and he actually named his tavern the Billy Goat Tavern, therefore. And to promote his business in the 1945 World Series, they were playing. The Chicago Cubs were playing the Detroit Tigers, and he tried to bring a goat into the ballpark. And, of course, he was greeted with a lot of argument by the ushers. And he showed the back of the ticket and basically said, there's nothing on the back of this ticket. It says I can't bring in a goat. And, they didn't have any rules or otherwise, and so they kind of conceded. So he was able to, secure a seat for himself in the goat. And it was a misty night, and the rain kind of made the goat smell come out a little more.
Right.
And
I know that smell.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant.
right, and fans were complaining, and so finally the ushers who were chomping at the bit to get this guy out were able to do so. And when they brought him out onto the street, the legend has it that he said, said to the ushers, your team will never go to the World Series again. And then the following day, he did actually send a telegram to P.K. Wrigley, the owner of the Cubs, and said, you will never go to the World Series again.
Wow.
And they never have. So that a curse was born, and the team has been obsessed with it ever since. I can't tell you how many times goats have been brought on the field. They've had dozens of rituals.
Is that in an attempt to counteract?
Right, yeah. And the Cianis family, it took a couple decades, but finally they tried to, reprieve or, lift the curse. And sometimes they did so and then got angry and put the curse back on.
Doesn't take much, does it?
Yeah.
Just a few words in the wrong time and the right places and whatever,
Yeah.
Well, speaking of curses and potentially cursed stadiums, have any of them been exorcised?
Ah, good question.
There have been Laurie Cabot, the Salem witch,
Right,
well-known
yeah.
Salem witch, was brought in to try to exorcise the Red Sox curse on a couple of occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Anaheim, which was thought to have an injury curse, and many players, believed that, and there were a lot of tragic car accidents and really bizarre injuries that occurred over the years, and players were kind of very nervous playing there. They brought in a witch, Louise Huebner, and she gave the players medallions, and the team has also brought in people given talismans, given charms to players to try to undo the curse, and none of those
What about
things
like
actually
a
work.
traditional Catholic exorcism? They ever tried
Yeah.
that?
Not to our knowledge, but it could have been done secretively.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised, just given the nature of how superstitious teams are, how
Right.
well they.
So, well, speaking of which, you have some paraphernalia with you here that relates to that, right?
Sure,
The bracelet
sure.
here.
Yeah, ball players have to be the most superstitious athletes on the planet. They definitely do a variety of things, from not stepping on the foul line to wearing the same uniform to carrying good luck charms in their back pocket to basically they believe in baseball gods and they believe in ghosts and these are we interviewed a lot of Japanese players too, and
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, so
Now,
a lot of
now I
Japan-
can't read this. I can't decipher it, but
It's called an omomori, and Japanese players will have that on their locker to ward off evil spirits and invoke good luck on the
so this
team.
is very traditional for them.
Right,
There it
and
is.
and this, yeah,
I can't read these symbols.
yeah. I'm
I
not.
can read them. I just don't know what they say.
Well, that was my question. Do you know what it says?
Unfortunately, not. I think the last part says temple, but I can't read the first
okay.
two characters. My wife is Japanese, so I'd have to.
Is there something in there like herbs or something?
It's something that it's. I don't know if there's herbs in there, but it's something that is Buddhist monk
maybe
will.
there's
To me, it
will
kind of
blessing
looks like
over
it.
it
Will
looks
bless.
like it says Miyagi Karate for defense only.
I'll go along with
I
that.
could.
Oh, give me that.
You decipher it, Carl.
Kali-san, what does it say?
It says, peace, prosperity, is as close as I can translate. Peace, prosperity, protection reside in your temple. That's pretty much it.
That may be right. Well, thank you, Kali-san.
Well,
We
it's got to
do
be a
appreciate
close
it,
guess anyway.
Yeah.
Close guess.
Yeah, Tomo, we do appreciate it. Konnichiwa, Kale-san.
Yeah, Japanese
You
are very super afraid of their of evil spirits, and they'll actually have when the team is slumping, they'll put
they're
piles of salt on
Yeah.
the dugout to ward off the spirits, and they'll do
like
things.
sea salt, maybe.
Yeah, they have various rituals, and they wear these bracelets. The Red Sox pitcher Okajima, if you look at the Red Sox yearbook, he's wearing one of these on his wrist. It's called kenju, and it basically also wards off the spirits, and they're made from a special type of wood.
It just happens. The colors just happen to match your outfit exactly. So I'm wondering
Very
if that was is that
coordinated.
intentional. or
No,
just
no,
by
but
coincidence?
it's maybe it's because I like blue and tan, but
Oh yeah,
that's
just
why we-
happens to go along with it. you know.
So is it the stones themselves? Are they a particular type of stone, or maybe there's just a blessing over the bracelet itself?
Oh
This
no,
must be
they're
helpful.
blessed stones, yeah, and they're blessed at a temple. And when Japanese go to a temple to pray, they'll receive a larger version of this, which has a number of beads on it. Usually some derivative of 108, because 108 has a lot of meaning in Buddhism, and they'll rub the beads for purification and also will help to protect them too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of part of the, but players do that a lot, and every player in Japan goes to a temple or shrine before the start of the season to pray, to invoke, the spirits and protection. Yeah.
Now, there's some speculation that certain teams, so to speak, will kind of bring this upon themselves just by giving the subject matter recognition. Like you get cursed shows, cursed plays, cursed television shows because of the subject matter. Well, the same goes in sports teams too, like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, for
Right.
example. It's like, they call themselves as Devil Rays. They're bringing it upon themselves, right? What do you
They
think?
recently changed their names. Didn't they
Yeah,
drop the devil
they
part?
did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah,
now they're
just
winning.
gotta be
yeah.
ready.
Now they're winning?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Well,
I think maybe they psyched themselves out for it, so they've got more of a positive attitude.
Coincidence? I think not.
Remove their own curse.
we have a chapter in the book on, there are 3 cemeteries located underneath the stadium too, so the Tropicana Field, and some players thought maybe that has something to do
Wow.
with their bad luck over the years. But there's definitely a belief. Players are very prone to suggestion, and certainly they talked about that a lot, and even when they try not even to joke about curses because they think that will lead to something.
Understandable.
But
Understandable.
then they also believe there are ghosts at the ballparks that will help them out too, and Yankee Stadium, for instance. Yeah.
Believe it or not, we're almost running out of time because
Wow.
we've covered so much, and there's so much more to cover.
Sure.
Sandra, do you have any more questions that you particularly want to ask?
Have there been any instances of people having their ashes deposited at any of the stadiums? Are people that dedicated, and is that allowed?
Yeah, that's.
You even mentioned that in your book, right?
Yeah, we have a whole chapter on fans depositing ashes. It's actually incredibly popular, and a lot of fans will do it inconspicuously. They'll try to lean over the fence and
Oh,
deposit
really?
the ashes of their dad, our loved
You'd
one,
think it would be
who's a huge fan.
an honor, a tribute for it
yeah.
to be an actual ceremony. And
Well, some teams will do it, with permission, and like the Cubs, for instance, and the Red Sox have on occasion too. They usually a family will give a special request, and but a lot of folks don't know that, and that's why they'll do that. And at Wrigley Field, the security guards are actually trained to look out for because the ashes will damage the ivy, so they kind of are trained to watch out for that. But the ashes have to be deposited.
I wouldn't do it during a game.
Yeah, and the players don't like it at all, and generally they're not told when there are ceremonies. Whenever we've asked them about that, they get incredibly spooked.
So
Yeah.
nobody's in line to be buried under first base.
Well, it make
donation.
people a little nervous there, yeah. I got touched when I was on first base. I can't go there.
Insert the ashes into a baseball. That way you're always part of the game.
Yeah, who would want to do that?
Some of the ghost stories.
Remain in motion.
Left field and stuff like that.
Not on my itinerary. Not in my
some-
future
How many
plans.
people have their
Plans.
remains traveling at 90 miles an hour?
What
I
about
like baseball and all, but
what about
not that
like
much.
Jose Lima, an individual cursed player? That's
Yeah.
mentioned too.
Yeah, there
Where
are a lot.
it's not necessarily the field. It's like this guy's cursed.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's a streaky game, and teams are streaky, and so are players. And so, yeah, Jose Lima was a classic example. He won 20 games in 1999, and then the following year he lost 16 games. So it was thought that he was he won that if he was cursed, he went to a spiritualist in the Dominican Republic who told him that a 34-year-old woman had put a curse on him. And he actually got on national television and asked whoever this person was to please come forward, and so he can reverse the curse. And
Wow, great.
yeah, so it's definitely another part of the game. Right. Yeah.
So you got a sequel coming out?
Oh yes, yeah, second volume. Yeah, we're working on it, and it'll come out in 2009, and
Great.
have a lot more ballpark stories. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dan, and we will come back again, right?
Oh, I'd love to.
Especially
Sure.
when your next book comes out. I hope you'll come back and share that
Sure.
with us.
Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for being our great guest
Oh, thank you.
on our second anniversary show.
It's an honor. Yeah.
Sandra,
Thank
would
you,
you give us some of our contact info for the studio audience and for our TV audience?
Oh, you betcha. As always, we'd like you to know that we at N.E.A.R, New England Anomalies Research, are available to research local alleged hauntings or assist those of you who may be experiencing unexplained phenomena in your home or place of business. We'd also
Or your
like-
stadium.
Or your stadium, indeed. We'd also like to hear from you if you have a show suggestion, or would even like to be a ghost, or would like to be a ghost. We can't arrange that, but if you'd like to
Well,
be
hopefully not too soon, but
guest.
we don't do seances on our show.
Ghost and Near
Ghosts
outtakes.
are near.
Good one,
We don't
Sandra.
edit here.
We don't have time.
So give us a shout at Ghosts Are Near at Cox.net, and we won't make you a ghost.
All right.
That's a little different ending.
Hey, Dan, it's been fun.
Likewise.
It's been, you're a great guy and a really fantastic author, too. And we'll look forward to more tales of the macabre and sporty events from you.
Let's just sit and talk with him for the next half hour till the studio
Oh, we
closes.
could. But anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That wraps up our second anniversary show. We had a wonderful guest for you.
It's been a
And
blast.
We'll see you next time. Until then, be safe, take care. God bless.